Hello, my name is Hakon, and welcome back to my channel and the second official episode in my impromptu, improvised, spontaneous little vlog about books that I have called Booktalk. I have made other videos about books before, but last time I decided I should make it a kind of a themed, branded series. It makes more sense to me, and it might make more sense to you as well. And even though it wasn't part of that vlog, I do think I mentioned a few videos ago that I was going to do a little episode about, say something about fresh water for flowers by Valérie Perrin. I do have some things to say about that. I haven't got to that yet. Over the last week, though, I have been reading quite a bit as usual, and one of the things I have been reading is Leonard Cohen's The Book of, no, not the book, but just Book of Longing, one of his poetry collections. For those of you who don't know, Leonard Cohen wasn't a singer who wrote poems. He was a poet and or even a well-established poet before he started singing, who also sang. And I think that his greatest poetry isn't so much in his songs necessarily as it is in his books of poetry. And he's published quite a few books of poems. I don't have all of them yet. I do have some of them here. I'm going to get more of them. I think there's like 9 or something altogether. I'm not sure about the exact count because some of them are also collections with poems that have been published before, plus some new ones. And some of them, there are also new versions of older poems. There have been a little bit of a revision as well. But generally, I'm not going to say too much about Leonard Cohen now, but one thing I really like about him is that his poems read as a kind of spiritual journey through life in a way, um, where most of them are in some way or other about God and his relationship to whoever is seeking to understand God. So it's a kind of a almost like a mystic experience kind of thing that is being described, I think, in many of Leonard Cohen's poems. So in a way, he was a kind of religious mystic who, of course, his grandfather was a rabbi, and of course, he himself was by birth a Jew. But he also spent a lot of time in church, and he knows a lot about Judaism, Christianity. He also was interested in things like Jewish mysticism, Kabbalah, and also Buddhist mysticism. I suppose we can call it Zen, although I suppose Buddhism in many ways is a kind of mysticism in itself. Um, Mysticism, I suppose I should say that for those who are not that familiar with the term or what it really means, is that when you talk about mysticism as a branch of a religion, it's the branch of the religion where you have people who think they can actually feel a kind of unity with God, which to many practices of Judaism and Christianity, of course, that's a kind of heresy or blasphemy to think that you can actually get a kind of oneness with God. There always, for many, there always needs to be that distance between God and men. But if you're a mystic, you think that there's a kind of a unity that you can get, where at some points you might experience that there is no difference between yourself and the divine. And a lot of Cohen's poems read a bit like a kind of a journey where he is trying to attain this, where he is trying to understand it, and one where he seems to have found God at the same time as he's still searching for him. So kind of a paradox that doesn't seem paradoxical when you read about it. I'm going to talk more about that some other time. I did say more about that now than I was planning to, but there you go. And also, I went to town yesterday and I found, usually I find something I want to buy when I'm in town, especially when I peruse the poetry sections of secondhand bookshops. So I went to Oxfam again and I found this very nice volume of the Pageant of English Poetry. And it has some really interesting things about it, and that's even before I've started reading the poems themselves. So I'm going to show you that properly, and I'm going to do that on my desk because that's going to be a little bit easier. So I'm going to change the view now down to my desk. Right, so here we are. I got this book here. I'll just make sure I am in focus. Yes, it's from Oxfam, Gift Aid, and £3.99. A princely sum of £3.99. Not bad, I think, for this book. A little bit of foxing here, nothing to worry about. Now, the first interesting thing about this is the gift message, I should say, in the beginning here, because it says, to Sydney on his 21st birthday with every good wish from his cousins. What's that? Rhoda and Mary. September 28th, 1914. And of course, when I saw this, I thought maybe Sydney never really got to enjoy his book so much because maybe he went off to war. I don't know. So 1914, we know the book is from before that. A nice little print here. Milton, Shelley, Shakespeare, Keats, and Tennyson. And this is the Pageant of English Poetry, being 1,150 poems and extracts by 300 authors. This is published by Henry Froude, Oxford University Press, 1912. There you go. Note, I'm not going to read that. That's a bit of a tear there. Actually, I think when I was buying this, I think the lady who took my payment might have accidentally torn it, actually, when she put the receipt in. That's all right. I'm not going to be bothered by that. So it's 1,150 poems. That is quite a bit, but there are some other things. I noticed that there was some things tucked in between the sheets here, which also, to me, makes it more interesting because it adds to the history of the book. So here, there is... Actually, somebody has taken a poem by Thomas Campbell, a cutting from a magazine or a newspaper magazine. And this is quite a bit later. What we got here, the President Recliner, the only chair in the world with its own built-in TV set. So this is quite a bit later. So this is probably from the last owner, I would imagine. And there was one other thing as well. Let's see. I can find it now. There was a bookmark in here. It doesn't stand out so much that actually it's easy to find, which means it doesn't really do its job as a bookmark so well, because the pages here are actually quite thick, and the way they... Oh, it's so hard to find now. Okay, I'll just see if I can... Must be here somewhere. It's a bit hard to leaf when you have these pages that are cut in this way, because in a modern book, of course, usually when you finish printing a book, you make sure that this bit here is completely even, but now it is natural, the natural paper edge on the side, which makes it harder to leaf through. I don't seem to be able to find it now. There it is. Okay, so we also got a bookmark in it. So another little piece of the history of the book. You never leave me, Lord, however I feel. 1983 it says on this, so it's got a nice date on it as well. And it says here, Mothers Union Deanery Festival, St. Mary's, what's that, Solitude? 11th of June, 1992. So another little piece of history from the ownership of the book. And then, at the end of the book, there's yet another little fun thing, and that is a sort of small newsagent's print of As You Like It from T.J. Perkins, newsagent and tobacconist. David Long, it says. And this is quite interesting as well. And there's some notes here. It says pages 617, 618, 619, etc. It looks like... And there's some notes here as well. It looks like... Well, that's just as David Long now. It looks like somebody has been using this for, well, study or performance. That was quite interesting. And there's some notes here. Roberts, Orlando. So that's the characters there. Yeah, so that was quite interesting as well. So you got a little, yet another little thing that isn't technically part of the book, but that actually adds the more interest to the book. So yeah, and that's even before I've started looking at the actual poetry in the book, which I presume is quite an interesting mix as well. Nice clear print. So yeah, I am. And one of the things I like about poetry collections in general is that they all have very different ideas for what should be in them, and which poems are important, which ones actually deserve to be in a collection. They might have different views on that. And so I do have several collections now with lots of poems in them, but it's yeah, the philosophy that's behind the selection is always quite different, although you still would have some overlaps of the very obvious ones that I think everyone agrees should be in all poetry collections of the English language or of English poets, British poets. So yeah. Yeah, that's really what I want to show you today, really. That's the my book, The Pageant of English Poetry, and I'm, of course, might give you some more poetry readings from it at some other point. And I may do another video where I talk more about Leonard Cohen, even though I did actually cover quite a bit that I wanted to say about his poetry, but I will do a proper one where I also do some more examples and do a little bit more of a proper bullet point list for myself, because right now I haven't prepared anything. I just did that sort of improvised. But I may have missed some points, and I may not have made other points as well as I could have done. And also I can illustrate the points with examples as well if I do it properly. So I may do that. Right, so I think that's it for today, and I'll see you in the next episode of Book Talk. So goodbye for now.